Well, to get some reaction, we're now joined by actor and linguist Lesley Musina. Lesley, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Does this news delight you?
Good evening, Mr. Peter Ndoro. Yeah, it's quite exciting. I think that is it was supposed to have happened a long time ago. It's
Yeah.
long overdue. And as you said, as a linguist, as someone who is very passionate about languages, as a polyglot, as a language activist, I'm really excited because our languages in Africa in general have come a long way. So it's only, it only makes sense that you actually add this sort of feature, or you actually add our languages, on Google Translate or any other platform that's out there, because a lot of the young stars, a lot of the young kids, and even older people, we do most of the things now online. We are always on our phones all the time. So I think it only makes sense that you also have such on digital.
Yeah. How much of a difference do you think it's going to make? We heard in the package, how some people, their lives literally changed overnight. What's your sense? What will this do?
Look, I think it's going to go a long way. I certainly think that it will certainly go a long way in terms of also assisting us in the continent to learn each other's languages. And I've used the platform a number of times. Just learning a language like Kiswahili, for example, and I realized that there's so much similarities between East African languages and Southern African languages because we are the same people, in essence. And I think it will do a lot in that we've been talking over the years that we need a language, not a colonial language like English or French or Portuguese, but we need a sort of a lingua franca or a local language that, can unify Africa as a whole. I mean, a language, when you look at, for example, as a language like Kiswahili, sometimes when you hear people speaking Kiswahili, you pick up, Shona words in there, you pick up Zulu, Zulu words in there, you pick up Xhosa and also Chivenda as well. So I think it's really going to help, in terms of just uniting us, because we've got so much diversity in Africa, and I think we must just celebrate that diversity. But more than anything else, it will unify us more than anything else.
Why do you think African languages haven't translated so much into areas such as commerce?
Yeah, it's because of the system, obviously, the imperial system that has been laid in place, that it was not meant to include us. We're not supposed to be participating in terms of how the imperialists or the colonialists set it up. But I mean, we are way beyond that. Africa has had its freedom. I mean, some countries like Ghana, I think they're now been free for well over 50 years, probably going on to 60 years. So we can't be going back, to the colonial past. And we have a lot of linguists in Africa. We have a lot of skilled writers. We have even people that have written their thesis, in their own local language. And congratulations also, I just want to say also to the recently elected Deputy Chief Justice, Maya. I mean, she wrote her thesis in Xhosa, for example. Wow. And it's not only her, there's so many other people that are out there, that our languages have really evolved. But I think commercially, as you say, unfortunately, I think it's the way that the system has been set up, that we feel that English, for example, or even French, is the way to go. But when you look at the Chinese and you look at other nationalities, they do business and conduct business in their own languages. So I don't see why we should still be struggling in Africa. But I think, unfortunately, the colonial hold, unfortunately, when you look at West African countries, I mean, it's very difficult sometimes when you're doing business, from, say, South Africa and some Francophone countries, for example, or Anglophone countries. And that shouldn't be, all those barriers that have been put, they were put a long time ago, but we've had our freedom, we've had our independence for so long. We can't keep going back to that. So I would blame, unfortunately, governments that are in place. I think they need to start taking off those shackles. I mean, I saw recently last week on an interview on radio that they were talking, there was a summit that took place in Gaborone, and they were talking about things like just getting rid of some of the red tape and some of the laws that make it so difficult, just to do business sometimes in certain sectors between Botswana and South Africa. I mean, we can't be having such, in 2022. But I think just to wrap it up on this question, I think it really has to do with how the system has been set in place. But I think we have the power, we have the authority to be able to change that as Africans.
All right, talking about languages, I think it was Nelson Mandela who said that if you speak to somebody in a language that he understands, it goes to his head. But if you speak to him in his own language, it goes to his heart. Is that your fascination with language and why you've learned so many? I believe you know as many as 5 languages.
Yeah, that's true. I do know quite a lot. I do speak literally almost all South African languages.
Yeah.
I do speak also in the continent. Ndinotaura Shona as well. I want to say Makati,
Aiwa tiripo makasimba here tiripo.
Ndasimba singaiti kutoka ku South Africa.
Aiwa ndiyo ndafara shamwari.
Mafara nditi.
Tafara chaizvo.
So I think
yeah.
My tabasa. So I think it's really the love that I have for languages, which I picked up from my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who had lived in exile. She had lived in several countries, and she was very, very fluent in so many languages. She was not educated formally that much. She had gone to school, but she didn't. I think she only had primary school education, but very, very smart. I mean, she could speak all these languages whenever she would speak when I was young, especially just after the new dispensation in South Africa post 1991. It was just before the new dispensation, when people started coming back from exile, and I'll hear her speak with different people from different countries. And I'll always ask, which language is this? She'll be like, oh no, this is Bemba from Zambia. This is Chichewa from Malawi. This is Shona. So that's how I actually got to pick up and learn these languages, because our languages have more similarities than differences, really, and it's easy to learn. I think the mental block really with a lot of people who don't learn other people's languages is that they just think it's difficult, but it's not. But if you take the time to learn and listen, it's actually quite easy to learn.
So do you think things like Google, Duolingo, these digital platforms are the future of learning languages?
Certainly they are, because we do everything, as I said earlier, online. And even just for the young kids, I have an 8-year-old son, and he has mastered my other phone. I'm not going to mention brands, but he has mastered my other phone, which a lot of people find very difficult.
Yeah.
I think he has actually mastered it better than I do. So there's everything that they do, even for his homework. He's only 8 years old, But when he takes my phone, he knows all the shortcuts. He knows how to do all these things. Now imagine introducing him to a new language at that age, introducing him to a language that he doesn't know, but because he can read, he's learning. Of course, still struggles with certain words, but I'm teaching him. Imagine you start teaching him at an early age, like literally where everything is just accessible at his fingertips. I mean, by the time that he's in his teenage years, he would have learned. Certainly, he would definitely be able to communicate. He will definitely be able, to get around, and it won't be that much difficult for him. So I think that it's actually a really good thing to have all these languages on these digital platforms, because, I mean, we are living in the digital era.
Muningina ndatenda zvikuru tataura tese. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Great, and you're so right. When you hear a language close to your heart, it just changes the space between people, doesn't it?
Very, very true. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Aiwa, tatenda, shukran, asante, zikomo kwambiri, medasi. Thanks, my brother.
Thank you.
All right, that's a talk about Google Translate, and I'm being told I should say, oh, hey, thank you very much indeed.